And research supports that family businesses, even though they have a reputation for being terrible and full of drama and bad employers, they're actually, most of them are really solid companies that treat people really well and are extremely generous. I think there are some really potentially cool opportunities with AI to let us actually specialize in being humans. I actually think actually specialize in doing human things, like feeling our feelings, having ideas, making things with our hands. I'm never going to ask Gino Wickman, who created EOS. I'm never going to ask him the question I'm about to say because I don't want to hear his true answer, but I believe he actually built EOS for family businesses. Unfortunately, our fears try to run the show, and then we say things like, well, I can't hire anybody, they won't do it right. Well, if you don't hire anybody, you're not going to do it right because you're not going to be here because you're going to be sick. So, just like trying to back up to the big picture is helpful.
All right. Welcome to The Show Goes On. This is a podcast about the people who keep businesses running behind the scenes. My name is Aamir Noorani, and today I'm joined by Sara Stern. Sara is an expert EOS implementer, a certified coach, and holds a master's in organizational leadership. She grew up in a business-owning family, worked in several herself, and led a nationally recognized family business center. She's known for cutting through the noise, keeping things practical, and occasionally swearing when she gets passionate about your family business. And she also hosts a weekly call called The Experiment with business owners. Sara, thanks for being here today. How are you?
I'm doing great. Thank you so much for having me.
Yeah, of course. Thank you for being here. So when people ask you what you do, how do you usually answer?
Well, geez, you give me a trick question right away. The reason I say it's a trick question is here's my honest response when people ask. I say, I help family businesses get their poop in a group. That is how I answer. And the only reason I say poop in a group is when my kids were really little, I thought, I'm going to stop swearing. And so I started saying poop in a group instead of getting your shit together. But that's the only thing that stuck. So yeah, that is what I get to help people do every day.
I love that. Poop in your group or?
Poop in a group. Get their poop in a group. Yes.
I love that. Yeah.
I love that you're taking notes on that. That's great.
No, and I like that saying a lot because I'm just going to start using it with people now too.
It's really helpful. And, you're not technically swearing. So it's great.
Yeah, for sure. So, I'll dive right into it regarding family businesses. Like, how did you get into that? Like, why did that become one of your specialties?
Yeah. I was raised by parents who were hippies in the 60s and 70s. And they instilled in my sisters and I that we better grow up and do something good in the world. And I think what my parents had in mind when they said that was maybe, be a teacher or a doctor or run a nonprofit or something. But I found that I had a real passion for business and particularly the owners. And when I really started the owners of businesses, and when I really started digging in around family business, I realized that in the US, family-held companies are 2/3 of the businesses.
Wow.
It's the vast majority. And around the world, that number is significantly higher. There are countries in the world where that is more like 80 or 90% of all the businesses. So I realized if I wanted to make a positive difference, it was helping owners run great companies that have great jobs. Because that's what everybody needs, right? Is a job. And hopefully they're all great ones.
That's incredible. So 2/3 of small businesses are family owned?
Actually, 2/3 of all the businesses.
Oh my God. Wow.
This includes publicly traded companies. Yes. There are huge. And of course, people think often when people think family business, they think like mom and pop store or I don't know, plumbing company or whatever. But there are family businesses in the Fortune 500, the Fortune 100. Yeah. 2/3 of all the companies are family held.
Oh my God. That's incredible.
It's most of them.
Yeah. My mind's already blown.
Yeah.
And I told you, this is something that's especially close to me because I'm in a family business. And so I saw that and that jumped out at me right away. So that's pretty amazing.
Well, and are you and your brother, right? Are you the founders or are you a next generation? Yeah, you're the founders. So that's how it happens is often two brothers or a parent and a kid or, whatever, an aunt and a nephew start it, right? It starts as a family business right away. And then many of them, want to bring in a next generation and a next and a next.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, no, that's amazing. So like what are some of the patterns that you've seen with family business that you've worked with? Like what are some things that you continue to see over and over again?
Well, I'm going to not answer your question. I'm going to give you two patterns.
Okay.
So I'm answering it, but two. One is that doesn't get talked about enough, and we probably won't end up spending most of our time on it. But the number one pattern I see is a deep commitment to each other, deep commitment to the business, and often a deep commitment to employees and the community. And research supports that family businesses, even though they have a reputation for being terrible and full of drama and bad employers, they're actually, most of them are really solid companies that treat people really well and are extremely generous outside of their four walls. So that's the number one. The tricky one that we usually end up talking about is in family businesses. There's actually, Harvard came up with this model that says in any family business, and hopefully this will be helpful to you today, there's three different systems happening all at one time. So there's your family relationship, right? Two brothers with all the things that brotherness has. Then there's the business system, the day-to-day running of the business. And then the third thing is ownership. What do we want as owners? Why do we own it? Where do we want to take it? How much money do we want from it? How much time do we want from it? How much money are we willing to put in? How much time are we willing to put in? What I see with most family businesses is they accidentally put those three circles all on top of each other. And then they say things like, well, whatever's fair in our family, it better look the same in the business, and it better look the same in ownership. And that's where things get wildly complicated and upside down and accidentally dysfunctional and toxic and become a problem. And it's when people can really separate those three circles out that they maintain a really healthy business and then a really healthy family relationship and ownership relationship.
Can you say those three circles again?
Yeah. There's the family system.
Okay.
Then there's the business, meaning the day-to-day running the business. Mm-hmm. And then the third one is ownership.
Okay.
Yep.
Okay.
The one that gets ignored the most is ownership. Yeah. I shouldn't even say ignored. Most people don't even think of that as a separate way to think. And each of those three circles in a really healthy family business has really clear sets of understanding about who's the leader of each of the circles, including ownership, what our priorities are, what is fair, what are our ground rules, where do we make decisions? For example, lots of people like to say, if it's a second generation, the family wants to decide how much people make for an income in the business. No, the family doesn't decide that. The business decides that. And then each of the three circles in the most healthy family businesses need to have their own meetings as well. And people often will accidentally have all their business meetings at the dining room table.
Yeah.
Right. And that, you live it, right?
Oh, 100%. Yeah.
Or around the pool on a Sunday or that, on vacation. No, those should be family times. And then you should have really good meetings around ownership and really good meetings about how you run the business as well.
Oh man, I hope my family's not listening to this right now because my brother and I would get so much crap right now because that's all we do on vacation. Like we're known to like go off in the corner and just kind of like just talk on our own.
Yes.
And everyone's like, what are you guys talking about all the time? We're like, work. I mean, what else are we going to talk about?
Yeah. Our favorite hobby that actually pays us. That's what we're talking about. Yeah.
It is a hobby. Yeah. Okay. So how do you help business owners navigate those three circles of family, business, and ownership then?
Yeah. I mean, the practical answer is in the business circle, I'm an EOS implementer and I love all the tools that come in that toolbox. And I'm never going to ask Gino Wickman, who created EOS. I'm never going to ask him the question I'm about to say because I don't want to hear his true answer. But I believe he actually built EOS for family businesses.
Really?
But I'm never going to get the clarification. But I actually have a little evidence. He was working with his own dad when he came up with this. So he made it for family businesses. So that's the practical side, like really helping them figure out who are the right people to do jobs in the business and not making that decision based on their last name or accidentally making their accountability chart look like their family tree, for example. So that's how I help in the business side. On the ownership side, I've created a system that helps them get that same kind of clarity around who's in charge of what in the ownership circle. What do we want from the business? How do we have productive meetings around that? And on the family side, I don't have a ton there, but I wrote a book for the spouses who you probably don't want to listen to this, who you don't want listening to this podcast, to help them really understand their role in the family business. And there's this really cool concept in family business of the chief emotional officer. being
Okay.
the leader of the family circle. And I wrote that business for those people so that they can really understand their role and how to be a really healthy part of the family business in that role.
Fascinating. Okay. I like that. Chief Emotional Officer.
Isn't that great?
Yeah, I've never heard that before. Yeah.
It's a helpful tool. And some people say, oh yeah, I know who it is. Mom's super emotional. No, it's not the chief be emotional officer. It's that person who keeps the family traditions going. Who sometimes might break the tie in the family, like stop arguing, you get the candy bar, right? Whatever, or we're breaking the candy bar in half, boom, boom. Usually the issues are bigger than candy bars when you become adults, but often the emotions are the same. So it's that person who also is typically the glue of the family. And it is that family gluiness, to use a really technical term, that tends to help family businesses do really well, right? You can't get rid of this person, so you're going to find a way to work through the hard things.
Yeah. Like they'll keep on coming back for more, right?
Yes.
Kind of sounds like the integrator a little bit. Isn't the integrator like the glue that holds the business together?
Yes. When I talk about the chief emotional officer, I often will compare the idea of an integrator breaks ties. Chief emotional officer might break ties. An integrator keeps the consistency. The chief emotional officer keeps the consistency. It often looks very different. The chief emotional officer is often saying, we're getting together for birthdays, or, this is what we do on holidays, or they're the one hosting the holidays, whereas an integrator's work looks different, but it has the same impact on that system.
Yeah, interesting. Yeah. So how does EOS land differently for family businesses compared to other businesses? I'm curious how they take it all in.
Yeah, I would say, and I've been doing this for 10 years, and I should do the numbers again. It's like 83.5% of my clients have been family businesses or something. I would say what I tend to see is they tend to stick like glue to the tools, because when you say something like, we run on EOS, and so therefore you have to be the right person and you have to be in the right seat, that's extremely helpful if you happen to have a brother or a cousin or an aunt or somebody who's not really the right person in the business and there's a performance issue. And even though it's terrifying, you have to get that person out of that seat. So I often see family businesses they stick fairly rigidly, like, we run on EOS, we're going to do it 100%, because it takes the personalness. Yeah. Makes it less personal. Wow.
Personalness.
Vocabulary. Personalness actually is a thing, right? The personalness goes down. Yeah. So, it's like, well, we decided to run on EOS. We can blame EOS instead of blaming your uncle for being mean.
I was going to say, it does take some of the emotion out of it when you can rely on an operating system like EOS. Then it becomes less personal then.
Yes.
And less emotionally charged. You're just following the tools. Yeah.
Exactly. And I've had clients who literally say, they say it playfully, but don't blame me, blame EOS. Like, we committed to EOS. And if we're going to have to blame someone, that's what we're going to blame. And they say it playfully, but they mean it too.
Yeah. So what inspired you to come across, EOS and that whole framework? Like, what was your first entry point into EOS?
Yeah. I was, thank you for that introduction of me. You made me sound very cool. I was running the Family Business Center, and I would get calls every week from the people you interview on your podcast, the advisors. It was CPAs and attorneys and bankers who wanted access to my audience. And in a lot of ways, I saw my job as protecting the family businesses from just another sales pitch. I always saw value in advisors, and family business owners very rarely get to go to a place where someone isn't trying to sell them something. And that's what the Family Business Center was for. So I saw my job as like, no flavor of the month, thou shall not pass my door, right? But then the family businesses kept talking to me about this book, Traction, and their level 10s. And their rock. So that it was bubbling up in the community of family businesses. So then I finally read the book, Traction. And at the time, I was reading Jim Collins and I was reading Patrick Lencioni, and I was trying to help. I was helping to teach classes at the university, and I was trying to help them simplify all this complicated stuff they were doing. And it was like a light bulb went off, which is, of course, the logo of EOS, because light bulbs go off when people read it. like, okay, this is the thing I've been trying to create. I'm just going to start pointing people to this tool.
Yeah. I feel like that's the holy grail. The Jim Collins, Patrick
Lencioni, yes.
and,
Which I might be pronouncing wrong. Please forgive me.
No,
Patrick.
I could. Yeah. Once you said it, I was like, oh man, I'm going to butcher this name.
I might be saying it wrong. Don't go quoting me.
Five dysfunctions of a team. That guy.
That guy. Exactly.
That guy.
Yeah.
And then Traction.
Yes.
Amazing books.
Yes.
But yeah, so Traction, you came upon Traction, and that's what really got you into this world. And you started hearing about it organically from people then too.
Yes. And I'm in Minneapolis, where this might not be true anymore, and I think it actually still is true. I think there are more EOS implementers in this metro area than any other, although there's others that are getting closer.
Okay.
And there's a lot of companies running on EOS here. I mean, there are literally B2B companies who are seeking out, other companies that run on EOS so that they can do work together because their teams speak the same language around accountability and follow through and values. So it was just a lot was bubbling here, but that was 12, 15 years ago. It's even more now. But of course, when it catches on fire, it really catches on fire.
Oh yeah.
In an area. Yeah.
Okay. So staying on EOS now, like because of, you've been doing this for 12, 15 years within the EOS world, how has it changed and evolved over these past 10, 15 years? I'm curious.
I was probably introduced to it 14, 15 years ago, 13, 14, something like that. I became an EOS implementer 10 years ago. And you know what's interesting? I'm going to say the most impressive thing is it hasn't evolved that much. And what I mean by that is the tools are the tools are the tools. And Gino was the visionary when I started. There have been two other, visionaries since, and he was just clear. There is nothing more. We have these tools. This is how it is. Period. So the essence of EOS has really not evolved. EOS worldwide and what we have to offer has gotten a lot fancier. The logo got an update. There's more books. I literally before this podcast was recommending one of the EOS books from the EOS library to a team that didn't exist back in the day. So there are, more resources that we can point people to. But the amazing thing is they're not really saying something different than they were saying, 13 years ago. Isn't that kind of incredible?
Yeah, no, that is. And, I asked that question. And then as you were talking, I was like, man, she's right. Because we started running on EOS in 2018. So about 7 years ago. And yeah, I mean, I got to tell you, like, it hasn't changed. And I think that's a good thing, too, because it shows that there's a lot of confidence in the tools and they do work if you stick to them.
Yes. And I mean, gosh, I bet when you started running on EOS, I don't think there was software. Maybe there was.
Yeah, no.
To run your company. Yeah. I mean, maybe that's the one thing that has changed is now you have choices in software to run your level 10, but you don't even need that. Yeah. I have a client who runs their level 10 on scrap paper.
No
way. They literally write their issues. They bring in scrap paper. They cut it in 4 with their hands and they write their issues on scrap paper and they put it in the middle of the table.
I love that.
Please forgive me, software gods. I have sinned. But lots of my clients love the software too. But that's maybe the one big change.
I mean, yeah, writing it down on paper that's in now, right? Analog is in now. So
yes. Yes.
No, but we use 90.io. That's been really great for us. Just being able to have that software kind of just. This is not a promotion of 90, but like kind of going down
unofficially sponsored by 90.
Yeah. One day.
It's super helpful. It really is. And back in the day, right, when you started, that's maybe the one change is you had to use a Word document or Google Doc or,
Oh yeah. We were going off of like Asana. Like we would just like create like little sections within the like a project management tool.
Yeah. Love it.
Yeah. So with all the family businesses that you've worked with, can you share any stories? It could be great stories. It could be horror stories. I'm just curious. What have you walked into sometimes when you've done, one of these all day sessions?
Oh my gosh. Here's, I never want a client to think she's talking about me. But they probably always do think that. So here's one thing I will say consistently what I walk into. Actually, let me back up a little bit. EOS, my colleagues in the EOS world often call me when they have a sticky family business situation and want to bounce ideas off of me. And I love that happens. I actually didn't mention this to you, but every other week I host what I call the Family Business Office Hour, and it's literally a Zoom call.
Oh,
and
cool.
EOS implementers come, members of family businesses come. I would love to have you or your brother come.
Yeah.
And I do like a 5 to 8 minute little tip or tool around family business, and then people ask questions. So I'll talk to EOS implementers at that meeting, or they'll just give me a call. And what I often hear is, I bet 1 out of 3 calls is, we were in the first day, we were in the focus day, and people raised their voices and they had a huge conflict. And my response is always, yes, that's awesome, because that's the point, right? To really figure this out. But the funny thing is, at least this has been true for me, and I think it is true for most EOS implementers, on that first day, their teams are usually on their best behavior and they don't raise their voices and they don't have a huge conflict. But that's not true in family businesses. They go for it right away. Yeah. So I've had lots of situations where they go deep, they have big conversations, they will stand up, they will erase the board 17 times and redraw it, and they're doing work that looks like another team 4, 5, 6 quarters later, when they've really taken down the walls around politicking with each other and, do they trust each other? So that could be any or all of my awesome clients who just come in on the first day and go for it. But of course, I've also seen really sad stories of one client where one of the cousins was clearly not qualified for their job, and they were showing up in a way that some of the team members perceived as him being abusive. He would lose his temper. He wasn't punching people, but he was losing his temper and raising his voice and stomping around the office. And it was heartbreaking. Yeah. And the family wasn't ready in the beginning to do something about it. And thank goodness EOS gave them the tools and the language to get him the right coaching and get him in the right seat in the company, so that he actually was right person, right seat, and not elevated way beyond his skills and abilities to the point that he couldn't handle it. And I've seen that too many times, which is heartbreaking.
Yeah, it's amazing. I guess like we were talking about earlier, EOS really helps family businesses navigate out of difficult situations like this.
Yes.
And then going into what you were saying earlier, when it's a family business, the walls are already down. There's already a sense of comfort with each other. So the whole idea of like taking some time to get used to each other, to vigorously debate, I guess that doesn't exist for family businesses. They just go straight into it then. Straight
into it. Why do you think you should be the integrator? What do you think? Why? And it's usually not, sometimes it's antagonistic. It usually isn't. It's a passionate, direct debate about what is the right thing for the company.
Yeah. And ultimately, that's great for the business. When you get a chance to just vigorously debate all the issues, then you can really get down to, what needs to happen then.
Yeah. Oh my gosh. My favorite example of this is I was with a founder and his two of his kids, and they were trying to figure out the accountability chart. And one of the kids thought that they would be a really good leader of the sales team. And the founder was saying, I don't know. I don't know if you should. Something about that doesn't seem right. And his kid's feelings started to get hurt. Like, don't you trust me? Don't you believe in me? And thank goodness I was on the ball that day. And I asked the founder, is your opinion based on your position as a dad or the founder? And his instant response was, I cannot think of someone I would trust more to do this position. So as a founder, I can't think of someone I would rather do this. As a dad, I'm worried that my kid is going to have to give up time with their children. And that breaks my heart. And so therefore, I don't want them to do the job.
Wow.
And what could have been demoralizing for that next generation person ended up being a great conversation with their dad and a new conversation about the role. Oh, isn't that cool?
No, that's amazing. And I'm just thinking back through, because our parents used to work with us too.
Oh, wow.
And in various ventures that we had. And I can now recall probably several, unique instances, just like you mentioned, where it was less about the business and it was more about the family relationship that was, in a sense, clouding the actual decision,
Yeah. Oh, it's just so easy to accidentally be someone's kid or sibling instead of their colleague.
Yeah.
So easy.
Man. So, when you're preparing for these all-day quarterly sessions, like what does that look like? What is your preparation? Do you have like some sort of routine that you come in with? I'm so curious.
I have a strong belief that no matter how I prepare for what I think is going to happen, that is not going to happen. And that because I see my teams once every 90 days, whatever was happening in the 8th hour of our last session is going to be completely different than what happens in the first hour. So I take very few notes because I don't want my concept to be 90 days old when they walk in the door. And in order to do that, I tend to try to empty my thoughts of expectations beforehand. That usually looks like some quiet time in the morning, some loud music sometime in the half hour before they show up, and then just some silly stuff like, are all the lights on? Are there snacks? Just kind of these like silly, they're almost like, I mean, calling it a prayer is a little bit silly, but like these little touch points in the day, like are these little pieces here so that I can just be fully present to whatever shows up or attempt to be fully present to what shows
Is
up.
it kind of like you're like making sure that the vibe stays good too? And like there's little things that you do to like make sure that everyone is still
Thank
where they
you.
need
I
to
think
be.
that, yes, that's a much more articulate version of what I'm trying to say. Like, I'm trying to be open and I'm trying to make sure the space is ready for them, meaning like I'm not dropping a vibe all over the place. And like, I have toys in the room and I have snacks and I have ridiculous signs in my bathroom and I have mugs that have swear words on them. Like, I have that there for a reason because what we do, I mean, I don't think anybody's going to live or die because of our sessions, but it does feel, I mean, it could have generational effects, the decisions that we make financially, spiritually, emotionally for people. I take that seriously, but I don't take the day so seriously. I have a book of dad jokes that when things get cuckoo, we pull out the stupid jokes and we tell the stupid jokes. And, that's part of how the day goes as well.
That's cool. I like that. And keep it light whenever like emotions are running heavy.
Yeah. Somebody just told me this yesterday. I have not confirmed if it was true or not. I just love it so much. I want to believe it's true that the ego cannot be online if you're laughing.
The ego cannot be online if you're laughing.
Yeah. It's like your ego is not participating if you're laughing. Doesn't that seem wonderful, whether or not it's true?
Yeah. I love that. I mean, cool. It makes sense because like, whenever you go to like a comedy show with friends, when you leave, everyone is just like in such a good mood. And it's just because you've just been laughing for like hour or 2 hours, hopefully if it was good.
Right.
And maybe that's just because everyone's ego just drops during that time.
I'm going to riff on this for weeks.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think I'm just going to watch stand up every single day now. I got to get rid of
That's the new rule. Yeah. You know how I prepared for this? Somebody sent me a funny video and I watched it about 4 times. So.
No way. Oh, man. So a lot of founders that we work with at one of our other companies, Anywhere Talent, they're generally like drowning in their day-to-day. And I'm sure you come across entrepreneurs who are also drowning in their day-to-day. What tools or strategies do you recommend for these founders to haul themselves out of that and I guess get to working on the business instead of in the business?
Yeah. I have a couple of favorite tools. I'll start by going back to EOS. There's so much in EOS that is about essentially committing to standing still instead of running around. And what I mean by that, for example, is the level 10, we don't reschedule it, we don't skip it, right? That's about consistency. So there's things in there all over the place, of course. I also host that weekly call, The Experiment. And the words I'm about to say sound so ridiculous. It's much more powerful than the words I'm about to say. But we literally get together and I facilitate people feeling their feelings for an hour. Most of us just try to shove our feelings down or we try to escape from them. And The Experiment is not exactly what David Hawkins talks about in his book, Letting Go, but it was inspired by that. In that book, he talks about, of course, suppressing or repressing things or escaping from them. But he also talks about the fact that most of us will try to express our emotions. We try to talk about it. And that's actually not helpful either. That our feelings are just meant to be felt. And what I have found is the business owners, and it's not only business owners who show up, it's a lot of advisors and then other people who just got word about it. The more they're able to feel their emotions, the less they do some of the silly stuff that leads them to the position where they're chasing, they're just running around their business with a metaphorical fire extinguisher all day and never get a chance to take stock of what's going on. The other thing is, and this is going back to this new discovery around ego, is like finding what's ridiculous and silly about it tends to help people sit back a little bit too. Like, or what was the joy? Like, what what was the fun you were trying to have when you started? Because a lot of people forget about that.
Yeah.
What did you think this was for? Let's do it for that again.
Yeah. And I guess when you think about the positive and joyous moments, those are moments when your brain kind of tends to like light up a little bit more.
Yes.
Yeah.
It's like, oh, yeah. Why'd you want to do this? You thought you were going to make some money and have more time with your kids. Okay, well, do you have any money or time with your kids? Like, let's go back to the beginning. Unfortunately, our fears try to run the show. And then we say things like, well, I can't hire anybody. They won't do it right. Well, if you don't hire anybody, you're not going to do it right because you're not going to be here because you're going to be sick. So, just like trying to back up to the big picture is helpful. Often.
Yeah. I was, this reminds me of a quote that I heard from my therapist a while ago. He said, are you leading with love or are you leading with fear? And almost always, whenever I was like at a conflict or a crossroads, it was because I was leading with fear.
Of course.
Yeah.
Oh, that's so good. Can I tell you about my, not my most recent therapist, but one that I fired a couple years ago? Yeah. She fell asleep in our session.
Oh my God. That's awful.
But it was crazy therapeutic for me because I kept talking as if she was awake. And I thought to myself, what are you doing? Like, this is the problem in your life. You're ignoring the fact that someone fell asleep. Anyway, that's a sidebar. But that therapist is very wise because when we are leading with fear, we're usually making very innocent mistakes.
Yeah.
Our fear is not a particularly strategic thinker.
Yeah. Yeah. It's almost like the childlike version of us that's just really trying to navigate and figure out the world. And you kind of need older you to pick them up,
Yes. Part of that work on the experiment, again, that sounds so silly, is we tend to feel fear and then we want to go into action right away instead of feeling it. And in my experience, when I bump up against fear, I can feel it completely, probably within a minute and a half or less. But there are decades of my life I've wasted running away from it or trying to do some stuff about it versus sit and feel it for 90 seconds and then be in a position to make different kinds of choices.
Yeah.
It's remarkably efficient.
Yeah, that's really amazing that you've been able to cultivate that ability to just feel it all the way through. I know I'm not great at that. And I feel like a lot of people, it terrifies them to actually feel their feelings. And you just pick up your phone instead and scroll or something to numb that,
Yes. Yeah. It's so easy. I've had so many people say to me, I'm not good at feeling my feelings. And then they come to the call and they're like, oh, I did it. Because here's the funny thing is we are born, we can't talk when we're born. Right. Mm-hmm. I mean, maybe there's one human who could talk when they're born, but I haven't ever met them.
That'd be pretty fascinating.
Right. All we have is our feelings. We're always feeling them.
Yeah.
Like 24/7. But then we put up all these activities or things we do to avoid noticing that we're feeling them.
Yeah.
And people often think like feeling your feelings looks like crying or laughing or yelling. It's usually just a very quiet sitting with your eyes closed or open. Mm-hmm. So oh my gosh! If you're not careful, we'll talk about that for 6 hours.
But, no, I mean I'm down for that. You referenced David Hawkins a couple of times, and you said his book "Letting Go." So I'm curious, when did that come into play?
Yeah, I probably bought that book for the first time 5 years ago or something like that. But I picked it up again this calendar year, and it's really in the first 20 pages that he talks about his concept of letting go. And the rest of the book is some fascinating other super cool stuff. But the night that I read that book, I just thought, well, okay, I'm going to try this. I'll just see if I can feel my feelings. And I was pretty much convinced I couldn't. But just closed my eyes. I was actually listening to the audiobook. So I just paused it, shut my eyes, and was like, what's here? And it was incredible. He says our feelings are lined up, just ready to be felt. And whatever the next one is will show up. And that was my experience that night. He also recommends feeling your feelings completely, like I said. He recommends that people will have thoughts. And he says, ignore your thoughts, put them to the side, simply feel your feelings. And in my experience, every time I've tried to meditate or do some sort of spiritual practice, like just notice your thoughts and let them walk by. There's no way. I've never been able to do that. It's like the thoughts come and like full body wrestle me to the ground, and like, there's no way. There's no ignoring that. Or they pinch my feet or they do crazy stuff. So my feeling is don't ignore them. The thoughts are like a platter. Pay attention to the thing being delivered on the platter, which is the feelings. And then David Hawkins says, let the feelings go. And in my experience, you're not letting them go. They're simply actually just reintegrating with you. Kind of like, I've never had a broken nose, thank goodness, or a dislocated shoulder, but I've heard that's extremely painful. But it's once it just gets back into whack, you don't feel it anymore, or back into alignment. And so what my experience has been is these feelings are like a shoulder that's been dislocated. Once you feel it completely, it goes back in and you're not, it's reintegrated with you. So I have a little bit of a different take on what he says, but I'm finding it's a remarkably effective way to have a lot more quiet between my ears. And also, strangely enough, some cool side effects. Like I have more confidence in my decision making. I feel like I'm getting much more creative ideas about my work and my business. I feel like it's improving my relationships. So I didn't expect that, and I would never promise it, because who knows what's going to happen for people. Yeah. But it's a weirdly simple, completely free life improver.
Yeah.
Weird, huh?
Yeah, no, I love that. And, it just makes me think a lot of entrepreneurs that you probably work with struggle with things like this. And the business almost itself becomes a tool to numb out these feelings of pain. It's just, well, you know what, I'll just work harder, or let me get into this, let me get into that, when really what's the root of what you're feeling? And maybe you just have to feel it and have that pain and discomfort for 90 seconds.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And then make whatever move comes on the other side of those 90 seconds, which might be no move at all.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
Amazing stuff. Yeah. So Sara, one of the other things I wanted to ask you is, how do you feel like entrepreneurs are navigating all this craziness with AI? I know it gets talked about all the time. It's changing very quickly, right? Every 3 months or something else. But what are you seeing out there with entrepreneurs? How are they reacting to all this?
What am I seeing? I'm seeing everything on a continuum from what's AI, I don't know what that is, kind of denial, to why are we even doing this business? Let's start an AI company, right? And everywhere in between. And I definitely think that I'm sensing a lot of the fear about, what does this mean? Can I move fast enough to keep up with this? Will it replace me? Some of those kinds of fears. And then inside of my head, the more I ponder it and think about it and feel my feelings about it, run experiments about it, what I think I'm seeing is a really cool opportunity to make work actually quite meaningful for a lot of people in a new way. I certainly do imagine there's some jobs that are going to go away, but I don't think anybody on the planet would say every job on the planet is a great job. So I think there are some really potentially cool opportunities with AI to let us actually specialize in being humans. And I actually think actually specialize in doing human things, like feeling our feelings, having ideas, making things with our hands, or making things with our brains and our creative capabilities. So the people that I see who are not making decisions out of fear are talking about and thinking about those kinds of interesting questions.
Yeah. I love that. I was reading something about how in this age of AI, more than ever, like the taste, right, and the ability to spot things and just having that cultural sense of like what looks good, what doesn't look good, that sort of judgment is more important than ever.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Wow. Which is a very subjective human.
Very.
It's like art. It's like your ability to almost, I don't know if this article was saying it, but I don't think AI knows how to play.
Yeah.
Maybe it does. I don't know. Does it know how to play? It seems like a pretty human-y thing to play or discern, or
parts of it. Yeah. But it's still feeding into like the large language model, right? So it can only go off of what it knows.
Right.
And I feel like the human brain, they're still studying it, but it's just way more complex than even these LLMs,
Yeah. I was saying recently, I don't know how to do this, but I believe it is true that I could ask AI to make an appointment with you, and we could have an appointment on our calendars that neither of us did anything about, right? Probably that's possible.
Yeah.
I could probably ask AI to send you an email, and we could have a conversation for infinity that neither of us are aware of. right? That's kind of fun.
Yeah.
It seems to me that when if a human says, okay, well, there's all that going on, what's left for me to do? The only thing left is connect, feel, have taste things, right? It's our senses.
Yeah.
That's what's left.
Yeah.
And that is the point, that we get very present. And everyone, well, not everyone, I don't want to say that. It seems to me that there's a race for people's attention right now, right?
Yeah.
The price of someone's attention has gone so high that we could actually, as humans, create our own time by being able to be present in the moment and, get our time back by letting AI do its AI stuff and letting us do the thing we're uniquely skilled at, which is actually being present in what's happening right here. That seems like a really cool opportunity for us. Yeah.
Yeah, I never thought about it that way, but the more and more you speak about it, I'm realizing that we always complain about like, oh, I don't have enough time. I don't have enough time.
Yeah.
Well, hey, maybe AI is going to help us get so much of our time back. So what are you going to do now with all that extra time? Like kind of during COVID, right? Everyone had all this extra time. No one could go anywhere. What do? Right? We were baking and going on long walks and doing all sorts of stuff.
Well, I mean, that's not a bad world. And weren't there dolphins swimming in Venice? And, it seems like not a bad thing, especially if we can all manage our fear inside of that.
Yep.
So, wow, this conversation went around in 17 circles and then kind of all came together. You're a conversation magician.
I love okay, so we're going to end with some rapid fire questions, if you're okay with that. Favorite book?
Jeez Louise. That is not the name of my favorite book. My favorite book is a children's book. I wonder if I can... You Are My Something. It's a book that when I read to my children, I don't have it. I'll say The Little Prince. That's my second.
The Little Prince.
I love The Little Prince, yes.
All right, The Little Prince. And favorite city? Because I'm sure you travel a lot for work from time to time to meet clients, but curious, what's a city that you always come into and you're like, man, I love this city?
Oh, I'm going to say the current one and I'm going to say my future one. My current one is San Francisco. I love that city so much. I lived there. I love it. The one that I want to visit enough to be able to have it be my real answer is Barcelona.
Barcelona.
I want to go back to that a lot. Yes.
Yeah. The architecture there is amazing.
It's incredible.
And favorite movie or TV show?
I don't know if it really is, but the thing that popped into my head is Fight Club. I love that movie.
Awesome movie. Yeah.
I love that movie.
Yeah. When those buildings are all collapsing at the end. Yeah.
I suppose I could pull it off. I've always thought it'd be fun to go to networking events and put Tyler Durden on my name tag, but being that I'm a woman, it seems like I couldn't, but why not? I should just do it anyway.
Yeah. And whoever picks up on it, you're like, I want to hang out with you now.
You're my person. Yeah.
That's cool. Well, Sara, thank you so much for joining me today. Before we sign off, any final takeaways that you want to share with everyone or where they can find you online?
I'm at Sara B. Stern, which my name is a sentence. I think that's really funny. So Sara, Sara B. I should put B-E on my website, but I don't. So Sara B. Stern, Stern. You can see I'm not particularly stern, but that is my name.
I love that. Thank you so much. And would love to stay in touch. Okay.
Yeah, let's do it. This was great.
Thank you so much for being here.